Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abby.
That's me.
That's you.
And you.
Well, today is just short of a disaster.
In every way.
It's like a steaming turd today. Big steaming turd, right?
Hey, but you know what? You are less of a turd in the midst of all the turds than you've ever been.
I am less of a turd. I mean, like, everything was definitely falling apart getting this together.
Everything fell apart.
Yeah.
All the headsets didn't work. The extenders, you needed a different cord. The internet didn't work. The Zoom, the Skype, the FaceTime audio.
Nothing's going through.
If anything bad can happen, it can and will happen.
Yeah.
Whose law is that?
But I don't know. That
Yeah.
sounds depressing. But
Forgot
I will
that.
say you used to freak out way more.
Yeah, I had one moment where I had to wrap my bald head with my hands and just kind of go.
I mean, I'm just glad it didn't go through the wall because I was like, oh, he's about to do it. His head's going to go right through the wall. But it didn't. So I feel like that's
We
self-control.
gotta protect that moneymaker.
Yeah.
Seriously.
So, guys, today we got a couple of special guests. You can hear Pietze there, and then off in the background, maybe there's like a little huff noising going on, going like
Mouth breather.
mouth breather much. We got Jonny. He's back in Colorado. Pietze's husband.
Hi, guys.
And I'm
Basically, they're having a party without me, and I'm stuck here with the kids. So
Don't say stuck. You got out of some serious stuff.
yeah, but me and Pietze are both on our periods.
What's worse, 2 kids or 2 adult women on their periods?
that is
Questionable.
Boy, I don't know.
Yeah, don't answer it.
Yeah, you both will be in
Very
trouble.
split on this one.
You lose either way.
Yeah.
I am so excited about this episode. I'm really excited for 2 different groups of people. The first group is for single people. We, when me and Justin started The Connected Life, we kind of talked through our story. We talked through our dating journey into marriage. And one of the reasons we do this podcast is I want people to get a realistic idea of marriage. When I was single, I really only had all of the fear or the worst stuff or the over glamorized, over fantasized Hollywood versions of romance. And so it was either
Everything
like,
works out perfect. Now we're in love. Happily ever after.
yeah. So it's like one or the other, and it's very hard to figure out. And I had the most hope when I could be around couples who were real about hard things, but where there was genuine love involved. And you felt like, oh, I could do that. I
Right.
could choose into a relationship like that and work through things like that.
Right.
And so
Well, you're about ready to get some real here. So
Wait,
You're welcome.
I was waiting for her, Jonny, to be like, so your guys' marriage has been a disaster. And it's given me so much hope.
no,
Are we
no.
allowed to say that on the podcast? Is criticism accepted?
It's always accepted.
So what I was going to say, so this is, you guys have a very great story of a realistic journey of 2 people who love each other a lot and have had to work through stuff to overcome. And I think when people hear that you can work through the steps and what they are, it gives everyone hope. Like, I'm not just powerless to some crazy thing happening in my life.
Yeah.
I can make choices along the way. And I think it's going to be really resonating for married people. I think a lot of people who are married are going to find themselves inside your story, being like, oh yeah, I've totally felt that. Oh, I've done that. Oh, I didn't recognize that. And you're going to have ahas about your life that I think are going to be really good. Sometimes I think hearing our own like pain or problems inside of someone else's story is one of the ways to get healing, because you can feel attunement and connection and validation. And then you can feel empowered to make choices to move forward.
Yeah, that's really good.
Absolutely.
So I feel really, really, really stoked about this. It's a very hopeful and raw journey, and you guys are all in for a treat. It feels like we're starting like the Connected Life Over, but with a new couple.
2.0.
2.0.
Well, I'll be the
Everyone gets
2.0
scared.
Bigger
version.
and better.
Not bigger, just better.
Yeah, definitely better. Definitely better.
Jonny, you
welcome.
want to say bigger.
I guess we could say bigger in that case.
So we're going to go on a multiple part journey here.
Yes. This is going to be a series, and I recommend listening to the whole series because it's going to build on each episode. You're going to have pieces, and it's going to help you understand your own story. You're going to connect the dots in their story. It's going to help you connect the dots in your own story and to help you feel empowered.
Yeah.
All right. Well, how are we going to kick this off?
Should we jump right in?
Yeah, let's start with everybody loves a good love story.
Yes.
So let's just start right there.
Yes. Well, I will say that Jonny and I had one of those, like, it's a Justin and Abby love story.
Wow.
It's very-
Nothing's really a Justin and Abby, but sure.
You know what? Well, we did just go, I'm not going to go there. Anyways, it was very movie, romantic, dreamy kind of thing. But I think in order to really go there in that story, we kind of need to give a quick synopsis of Johnny's childhood and
yours.
mine.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead. Jump on in.
I love how you led with you have to give a synopsis of my childhood. Because, I'm the problem one in this situation. That's why they brought me on the podcast.
This is an intervention.
But it's
Surprise!
so funny.
I actually had that thought this morning. I'm like, I wonder if this is an intervention. I thought that in the bathroom. I'm like, I'm going to get confronted about something on this podcast.
That's a great idea. So Jonny, do you want to start? I will kick it off by saying that Johnny's parents are legit hippies.
Aww.
And when we say that, I'm not just saying like, everyone's like, yeah, my parents lived through the 60s too. I'm like, no, his dad actually lived in a teepee for a year.
His dad may have accidentally fell in one of those big naked sex piles. And
I don't think that happened.
He was more of a nature hippie.
He was more of a nature, playing
like
his
a sex
acoustic
commune
guitar.
hippie.
Yeah.
Glad that's clarified. Your dad will be happy we
Just to
clarified
be
it.
clear here.
Sorry, Dad, if you're listening
When
to
he hears this, he's going to be like, "Ah!"
He's like, oh my gosh.
Oh gosh. Yeah, no, my parents, so my dad's brother is disabled, and then my mom was an only child, and so they both they were both only children, and they were hippies. They were, pot smoking hippies in Colorado back in the 70s, and they got saved probably when they were like 20,
In the
and then
Jesus
they got
people
married
movement.
yeah, they were total Jesus people couple. They got saved right out of college and got married right out of college and started having kids right away. I think a lot of people in our generation who grew up in the church, their parents had similar kind of growing up where their parents got married really young, right out of, getting saved from being hippies, because that's what Jesus saves us from is being hippies. Sorry. Oh gosh, this thing has already gone off the rails.
But it's interesting because for your parents, when they got saved, they came from being real like the free loving hippies into some really really legalistic, more regimented tradition of the church.
Kind of a huge pendulum swing kind of deal.
Yeah.
I mean, I think especially for my mom, I think it might, I don't know if it's her personality bent or her upbringing. I mean, she was very much raised in a house that is like kind of a 1950s sort of children are to be seen but not heard kind of house. And so I think when she got saved and kind of tried to start cleaning her life up, I think, and this obviously affected all of us kids, but I think that she very much put a lot of pressure on herself to do things the right way. To, so whether it be with faith or marriage or her parenting, there was a lot of pressure put on doing it right. So I grew up in the middle of nowhere in Colorado, out in a farm town. We lived on a dead end road, and we had like one of those, most people don't even know what this is, but we had a party line. So you could pick up the phone, and if the neighbors were on the phone, you'd have to wait for them to get off just to make a phone call.
Which is worth saying because that's a very clear view of how you grew up. You grew up as though you
cows and ducks
you were not a 1990s kid. You were not a kid from the 90s. You were a kid from like the 1800s who got plopped into the 90s.
We lived so naturally and we lived so simply. Like, you know what I mean? Like we were kind of like hippies growing up. So yeah, grew up in the church, grew up very involved in the whole Teen Mania Acquire the Fire thing. For those of you who are familiar, which was kind of a semi-legalistic branch of Christianity that really preached missions and making an impact on the world, you know, using terms like revolution and all of that kind of stuff. And I was actually right before this podcast, I was on the phone with my best friend, and we were just talking because he grew up very similarly. He grew up Assemblies of God, and then he was very involved in Teen Mania and Acquire the Fire as well. And we were just talking about what a big impact that has had on our generation of people of the faith in the pressure that we put on ourselves to make a difference in the world, and the pressure we put on ourselves to make our life count, you know, that whole John Piper, you know, don't waste your life kind of very guilt driven, very legalistic, like, hey, you're put here for a reason and you better not screw it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so
that definitely affected you growing up.
Big time affected me growing up. Both from the church and also I think from my mom as well. I know my mom had always had dreams of being a missionary because she had been a missionary with YWAM. And which I love that. I mean, obviously I love that, but I think there was always this sense that I felt as a kid that my mom questioned whether or not she had made the right decision to settle down and have kids, or if she would have been better off, you know, serving the kingdom of God in missions and whatnot. And so I think that, coupled with the fact that I was just naturally, I'm a very visionary person. So naturally, I just always have vision, and I'm always wanting to do something exciting and fun and important. So my natural personality bent, along with my mom and her questions about her life, along with the church and Teen Mania and all of that stuff, definitely left me exiting childhood with this firm belief that if I wasted my life on something that wasn't important, I would regret it forever.
Which is a lot of pressure.
It's a lot of pressure. And honestly, I am, you can ask Pietze, but I am the king of dissociation. And I will challenge any of you. I will challenge any of you to a dissociation battle, and I will win. I can dissociate for decades.
I mean, that's literally happened.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, literally that has happened. And so honestly, it's only been in the last couple years that I've even realized that I carried these subconscious beliefs about how important it was to do something important with my life.
Right.
So yeah, then I met Pietze when I was 17.
Yeah, let's jump into that a little bit.
And we've spent 3 months separated.
Well, hold on. Let's pause for a second.
Since I was 17. So
we've spent 3 months separated since you were 17.
It's a long time.
So I was never an adult on my own.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is another piece of the puzzle.
Yeah. That's a good point. So
how we got into this mess.
Oh gosh, now I sound like the old ball and chain. Oh Lord, I'm going to need some therapy after this podcast.
All right, you go ahead, babe.
Yeah,
I've straighten things up.
Actually, in previous episodes, really went in depth to my childhood, but I'll just give a quick synopsis. I grew up with 6 kids. Although we always include Abby as the 7th, we always say Abby's the 7th
Don't forget
kid.
Me. I'm in those family photos.
She's in those family photos. 5 brothers. My parents started churches, so we moved around a lot. My whole life was building churches and building the church. And I very much had the same view of God, like building God God's kingdom, if you will, or the institution of church is everything. And anything will come second. So
Oh, yeah. When we met, Pietze she literally told me when we were first dating, she said, it will always be God first, the church second, and then my family. She told me that. And I was excited because I agreed.
You were like, yeah.
I was excited because I agreed. I'm like, this is what I'm looking for. Absolutely.
I know, which, caused a lot of issues. But anyways, yeah.
How did you guys meet?
So, yeah, but we should say that I very much was like a robot growing up. I always thought I'd be single. I never thought I'd get married.
Totally.
I thought I would actually be that, like.
We kind of both thought we could be like cat ladies. In the
only
future
like,
together.
but with, totally
like friends, best
but
friend
before
cat
that,
ladies.
we would go like, oh, we're gonna go live in Africa, or we're gonna do something.
We'd live a
great.
cool life and just
We'd
end
live a
up
cool
as
life.
cat
Old
ladies.
spinsters, which we still will. We're gonna ditch these two.
We're moving to Florida.
Yeah, totally with our golf carts.
Oh no! Please don't do that to us.
Justin's like, please, dear God,
Ready
leave.
and waiting.
But yeah, I mean, what's funny is that I was not boy crazy. I genuinely thought that I could be single because it just would fit with my natural personality. So,
not your natural personality, your survival personality.
Yeah, because I was very much dissociated growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Now I recognize that I was dissociated and shut down. I had a heart of steel. I was the ice queen. So, but 6 months before I met Jonny, I still very much thought I'd be single. And I felt like God woke me up in the middle of the night one night and said, you're going to meet your husband soon. And
you felt like he woke you up, or he did wake you up?
I mean, he did wake me up. It's hard to say if I woke up and then he said something, or if he just kind of shook the bed a little bit. I'm not sure what happened.
And just for some of you out there, I legitimately heard that my husband was coming like 10 times and I was wrong about it. So don't listen to Pietze's story and decide that this is the way to do it.
I think that the only way that I could have gotten married was God speaking to me
because
in
you were
this
so
way,
shut down
because I was
it.
so shut down towards it.
Yeah.
So when I heard that, I'd never heard something like that
and
before.
And it wasn't exciting like, woo, yeah. You're like, huh.
Yeah, I was like, okay. But what's funny is it's like, I remember we'd be like in a prayer meeting and people would like prophesy, and you and like our other best friends, they'd be like, you are going to have this amazing husband. And then they get to me and they're like, yeah, I think you'll do something great with your life. And it's moving on. So I was like, yeah, I probably won't get married. So I think God had to like audibly shake me out of bed to be like, no, this is going to happen. But I think it actually opened me up to the idea.
Yeah.
So we were, this is very cute. We were camp counselors at a youth camp. And I remember I pulled up. I don't believe in the one. I was not raised with the one theology.
No.
My parents did a really good job of that. They were not against dating.
Mm-hmm.
They were not against, like, they don't believe in the one. So they never told me there is no one. And I don't believe in love at first sight. But when I pulled up to that camp, I saw Jonny outside. And I remember looking at him and I could feel like energy. Like, I'm going to oh, Lord, I got to stop talking. But like that moment where you're like, a lightning bolt hit me, like, I don't even know how to describe it. It sounds so cheesy, but
listen, I
knew.
attest to this because Pietze had never once liked a real life guy. She liked a couple band singers, but she never liked like a real human. And when she met Jonny, she was like, whoa.
Yeah, totally. It was the weirdest thing. I literally think this is the only way it could have happened for me because I'm such a like. And I was so when guys liked me, I was so oblivious. Like I was like, I don't know. I didn't even know anything what was going on.
Didn't care.
So it was like a bolt of lightning. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be with this guy, but I'm going to be tied to him for the rest of my life. I knew it. I said to myself, I'm going to be tied to that guy for the rest of my life. So then I spent the whole camp trying to like look cute, you know, and like get his attention. Didn't work. And I was so confused because I was like, I can get guys' attention. Like, why isn't this guy paying attention to me? He was probably dissociated.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So we met at camp and hit it off. And, you know, he was like, given me his email address, which I didn't have an email address, so I had to call Abby and be like,
she's like, Abby, I need an email address stat. Make me one. I gotta email this guy. I was like, what? When have you ever told me you need to email a guy?
First of all, why are you emailing? And second of all, what guy? And I made Abby compose the email.
Oh yeah.
All of those emails, Jonny, were not from me. They were from Abby. So we started.
I still have them.
Oh, that's great.
Johnny fell in love with Abby, apparently.
Behind the scenes, it's like the Wizard of Oz.
Abby's words, but Pietze's body.
But, you know, so like we hit it off, fell pretty hard really fast. And which was really fun and really great, except for he was 17 and I was 20.
You were 19.
I was 19. Oh, I was 19. So we were really young. And I think I got super freaked out.
Well, you got caught up in it. I mean, I think you came back and told me like that you thought you were going to marry him the first date you went on with him.
Totally.
Which everybody tells those stories and it's always like, oh, that's so amazing. But what I tell people is what happens when you decide you want to marry someone before you know them is there is always a bump when you realize they're not as great as you idealized them. There's always time that catches up with you where you're like, wait, and a lot of people do this. They jump into marriage or they jump into saying, I want to marry you or you're the one before they know that person. And then you have that catch up time where you're like, wait, I don't know if I decided to choose you before I knew you.
Totally.
And now that I know you, then it's a different choice.
Totally. 100%. Well, and now that I know myself, I know I'm a huge codependent people pleaser.
Just call it what it is.
Let's just call it what it is. And B, I dissociate from my feelings when they will cause me to upset someone. I will just dissociate from them. So what happened is that we're jumping into this really fast. I start to feel trapped. I hate feeling trapped. And instead of staying tied to my heart and being like, hey, what's going on? Where do you feel unsafe? Down. I just pushed it down and dissociated from it and tried to keep going, which led to
when we say dissociate, I just want to kind of give language to that because we've used it a lot already. Yeah. Dissociate is often what you do when you compartmentalize your emotions. You shove them to the side. You abandon
throw
yourself.
Throw them in a box. You disconnect from them.
You don't know what's going on inside of you, and you're not taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
Like sometimes dissociating means you're not aware of what your body needs. Like you can dissociate from your body and not be aware when you're hungry and not be aware when you're in pain. You can dissociate from your emotions where you don't know. Most humans have some level of dissociation from their emotions where they don't actually know what the feelings they're feeling are.
Stuff that logically should make some form of an impact, sadness, anger, frustration, disappointment, whatever those emotions might be. You could ask someone when those events happen and they'd be like, hey, you could ask them, what do you feel? And they could go, fine. Yeah. Not a big deal.
Yeah, that's one way. And another way is people who feel so many emotions often are dissociated. They don't know, they can never get to what they're really feeling, so they can never feel it.
An explosion of all of it.
So they're just constantly circling in emotions. That was me for my life. No one thought I had no emotions.
No one would have thought you were dissociated by that onset of experience, just big emotions.
Yeah.
Well, and for me with dissociation, I feel like I always thought to be dissociated was more in the realm of passive aggressive, where you're pushing your emotions down, but they're still there. So I always thought I was fine, because for me, what it looks like is I distract myself to the point where I'm not even conscious of what I was feeling. You know what I mean? I always thought like, hey, if I'm not feeling it, I'm fine. You know what I mean?
Just devoid of any feeling.
Because I knew people who were passive aggressive, and you knew that it was all bubbling under the surface. And for me, I'm like, nothing's bubbling under the surface.
There's
I feel great.
Nothing under there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I feel fine. But the problem is, as we all know, that eventually that comes back to get you.
Yes.
Yeah, totally. Eventually that bubble pops. And that bubble did pop.
The
for
emotional haunting.
Yes.
It's true.
It's very true.
So you shoved down your emotions over and over again. You jumped into a relationship fast, really, really liked him, and then started compartmentalizing, pushing through, not paying attention to what you really needed.
Which led to the vacation from hell, which is where Abby, my entire family, Abby was there. There were 17 of us, went to the happiest place on earth.
We drove. Caravanned from Colorado to LA to go to Disneyland.
We did in Jonny's car.
Apparently nobody else owned a car. So
Jonny
Abby
drove.
and Pietze's brother Jerry all had to ride with me.
Yeah. You were our ride or die.
Yeah.
At that point.
No, really, I don't think there were other cars that could make it that distance.
Other cars. This plays into the story. Because we go on vacation and suddenly I'm around Jonny all the time.
Yep.
And I can't keep pushing the feeling down.
All of a sudden, the feelings you've been pushing down, they start
bubbling up. I'm just they're regurgitating up in my face.
This is what I tell people all the time. I'm like, listen, you aren't easygoing if you shove your emotions down.
No.
To be happy and make people happy. They will come up and then you will be the person that is taking up all the space.
Oh, totally. Absolutely. And they subconsciously control your life, whether you're aware of it or not. And so eventually it came to a head and my mom and Abby had an intervention with me and we're like, because I was processing like, I don't know. I just don't know how I feel. And everyone could tell I was starting to disattach.
Yeah.
And so you guys were like, do not be a jerk. Go break up with, like, if you're not feeling this anymore.
You just avoiding him.
Thanks, Abby.
Just avoiding him.
This is so effed up.
I know. It's so
No,
effed
you have
up.
to understand. She was avoiding him in a group of 17 people. She'd be like,
Yeah, that's my point.
I'm going to ride with this person. I'm going to ride with this person. And we were like, no, just tell him what's happening. That's
I
better
would
than
feel
this.
so trapped if I was Jonny on a terrible ride.
I feel so bad now. This is why I couldn't do it. And then it literally came to a head at the happiest place on earth. So at Disneyland, nobody believes me.
Place on earth.
Oh,
At
gosh.
Disneyland, I broke up with my boyfriend who was stuck with us for 2 more weeks. 2 more weeks.
No.
Who was stuck with us for 2 more weeks.
I didn't realize it was an extra 2 weeks. I knew it was longer, but I didn't know it was
After
that long.
Disneyland, we rode to Oregon together. And then we rode back to California and back to Colorado.
After she dumped me, then we went to her grandparents' 50th wedding anniversary. Then was the lovely occasion of my 18th birthday,
No.
which was really great. Loved that.
It's so bad.
And then we went to Oregon.
It's so bad. I promise I'm not a jerk. It's so bad.
What a tragic
My
string
entire
of
family
events.
disowned me. My entire extended family. They were like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, I don't know. I really don't know.
You didn't
So-
know
It was
how to
so
handle
bad.
your
But
emotions.
then I didn't know how to handle my emotions. What was so sad is after that, we came home for a week and then we had to be camp counselors for 3 weeks together at a
No.
youth camp.
So
we
you're talking
couldn't
like
get
a month
away.
and a half together?
Oh yeah,
Yes.
and progressively through the 3 weeks, he started from like loving me
Yeah,
and
he
like
was like really kind.
wishing he could still be with me to like hating my guts towards the
Oh yeah,
end.
plotting your death secretly.
Yeah, which I thought was healthy, a healthy progression.
Yeah,
Yeah.
shut up.
I do want to say
At
this.
least he felt, right?
that as we are talking
Exactly.
about this, I'm thinking, me and Pietze created a course together. It's called The Pathway to Freedom, and it is all about understanding how your emotions are trying to help you heal, and all
Yes.
about understanding your heart and what's going on inside of it. And I was thinking like, if you would have had
Oh my gosh.
these tools back then, you wouldn't have had to break up with him in that way, because
No.
you could have understood what your heart was saying and what it needed and how to take care of it.
The minute I started feeling uncomfortable in the relationship, I would have paused, understood that a trigger was coming up, something was coming up that I needed to pay attention to, and then been able to sort it out and communicate from that place. It would have been a
Yes.
game changer.
Yeah. And so
Absolutely.
the whole journey that they're going to be sharing, I think is going to be kind of highlighting the power of learning yourself, learning your heart process, and learning how to heal.
Yeah.
And that's what we highlight on the Pathway to Freedom. It's that whole journey. And honestly, us doing this course is what radically began to transform your whole marriage.
Yeah, because this pattern that you see, the reason that we're going into detail about this is that this pattern that you see happening with both Jonny and I, dissociating from our feelings and then reacting out of them, is what actually has wreaked the most havoc and gotten us to a place at several points where we thought we weren't going to make it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so the flip side of this has been incredibly life-changing.
Yeah.
Jonny, Jonny, were you going to say something there?
Oh, I was just going to say, even going back to when Pietze broke up with me, that was the start of me beginning to discount her emotions and start to make decisions based on the assumption that she's crazy. You know what I mean?
That's a fair assessment.
Honestly, though, it'd be hard not to come to that judgment.
That was the starting point. And even talking about the course, like,
but you married me, so joke's on you.
The joke was on me. That's true. That's very true.
He says it so seriously. He's like,
beautiful. So, but had I known these things back then as well, if I was so disconnected from myself all the way up until about 18 months ago. But had I known some of these things back then, you're able to stop yourself and say, hey, you're telling yourself this story based on what happened, but it's not actually a true story. And then you start building a case for, it's all subconscious. It's all happening subconsciously.
Yeah.
But I started building a case for the fact that, hey, if this thing's going to work, I have to make it work because Pietze's crazy emotionally, And so had I been able to stop myself in that moment and communicate vulnerably and actually process what's happening on the inside of myself instead of just dissociating from it, I would have, our whole marriage would have been completely different.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, totally. Well, and that's where
that's why we made the course, so that other people's lives can be saved.
I know. It's seriously out of all these experiences and wanting to help people. But, I think after that, so we were at these camps together. By the end of it, he's hating me. I remember we had the most awkward goodbye. I was like, I should probably say goodbye because he was going to go to Wisconsin for the rest of the summer.
We were on worship team together, weren't we?
Yeah, totally. So we were together the whole time. It was horrible. The whole thing was a freaking mess. But he was going to leave for the rest of the summer. So I was like, I should just not be a bitch and say goodbye to him. Like I should be a little bit kind. So I went and said goodbye. Yep. We had the most awkward goodbye of my life. I kind of walked away in shame and was...
As you should.
Thank you. I know everyone's leaving it on. I'll take it. But I remember that day I was driving down the mountain, and after I got over my shame spiral and guilt that I felt from breaking and shattering Jonny's heart to pieces, I was praying, and I remember just praying to God, being like, I really want an acoustic guitar. Like, would you give me an acoustic guitar? So I go home that night and my phone rings and it's Jonny. And I'm like, we lived an hour away. And so I was like, why are you here? And he's like, I just wanted to see if you wanted to hang out. This is literally the night after, the night we said goodbye, the awkward goodbye. So I was like,
really?
Yeah. So I was like, this is weird. So I was like, okay. So we went and got coffee and we were talking. And it was a really good conversation, I remember, babe, because I felt like I got to kind of explain some stuff that had happened in the breakup, which felt helpful to me. I don't know if it felt helpful to you, but felt helpful to me. And we get to the end of this time together, and Jonny's like, actually, I didn't just come to hang out. I felt like God told me to do something. And so I drove an hour to Denver to get this for you and brought it back here because I felt like God wanted me to give you this. And I was like, oh, F. I was like, he's going to propose to me. He is an idiot. And he's going to propose to me and I'm going to break his heart all over again. Like, what the heck? And I was so nervous. And he pops the trunk and out comes an acoustic guitar. And I
might as well have been a ring.
Oh, it might as well have been a ring. I started bawling my eyes out. And he's like, this is no strings attached. I took my travel money because I felt like God said to do. I went all the way home, took my travel money, went an hour back to Denver, then went an hour to here because I know that I'm supposed to give this to you.
Jonny, that's so cool. That's so. What was going on for you? May I ask a question here and jump in real quick? What was going on for you in that process? Because you're grieving the fact that this didn't work, or maybe you're now just hate her. Maybe now you're just like, this is a peace offering to get over that. What's going on inside of you? And the fact that you went on that is pretty cool.
It's been a long time.
And I was dissociated when I did
And
it.
I was very dissociated. I think that what was going on in me at the time, I had honestly at that point moved on. I was actually leaving to go work on a music project with my brother, which would eventually become a band that I was in for a long time. So I was leaving to go to Wisconsin like the next day. So I had moved on in my heart. Like I honestly wasn't expecting anything from it, but I think it had been the last worship session at
The camp.
That I just felt like God put it on my heart to give her a guitar.
Before you even prayed the prayer?
Yeah.
This is crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Like and I've always kind of had a little bit of a prophetic bent to me where I just sense things in God that I feel like, hey, I'm supposed to do this or I'm not supposed to do that or whatever. And I just knew that anytime that I went with it, I was always really blessed. You know, like anytime that I felt something and I did it and I gave it, and you could do I'm sure you have done whole episodes on generosity, but anytime you follow that feeling where you're like, hey, I feel like I'm supposed to give this thing to this person and it's going to cost me and it really sucks because I don't have that much money.
And I don't even like
but God
them.
always, but God always follows it up with blessing. And so I just knew, like, I felt it so clearly and I knew that I had to do it. So I just did it. I mean, there wasn't a big emotional arc to it in the sense that I didn't have this sense of I'm upset that this is happening because we're not together, or a sense of I'm trying to make us get back together.
You were just
And
doing
obviously I
what
didn't
your
know that
gut told you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously I had no idea that she wanted a guitar. I mean, everybody in her family plays music. They all have guitars. So I didn't assume that was something that she wanted. I just knew that what I felt in my spirit was that I was supposed to do it.
Which is so cool. That's been a lot of my life journey where I don't have really a ton of emotions about something. I just know that I feel a yes inside of my knower. And I'm like, I'm going to do it. And I don't. I don't have even a bunch of big emotions about it. I'm just going to follow this and watch it unfold. Unfold. Yeah.
Well, there was a big blessing that came from that because I literally drove out of the parking lot that night, called Abby right away and said, I think I'm going to marry Jonny. And Abby was like,
Whoa. This is a big emotional roller coaster we're going on here, sis. Like, we are up and we are down. No. Slow it down.
Slow it down. You were like, you just broke up with him. And I'm like, no, I know that I'm going to marry him. And you were like, you knew that before we went to Disneyland a month ago. And I was like, I know, but this time I know. So from there, we actually just started a friendship again.
I do just want to mention, because I think so many people over spiritualize journeys. And this is what happens. There are things that you can intuitively know. And some people would call it God, and some people would call it the universe, and some people, but like there's an intuition of knowing things. But most people think that intuition means there'll be no pain. It won't be hard. It'll be easy.
Right.
They don't understand that there's a health aspect of like how you choose to walk it out. So you felt that instant chemistry when you met, which didn't mean anything
totally
in how you walked out the process.
Totally. And it wasn't like a pain-free, perfect process. Pain, you have to take pain off the table because there will be pain no matter what.
Whether you have an intuition or not.
Whether all the stars align, there will still be pain on the journey.
Yeah.
And so
I didn't know that back then.
Yeah, me neither.
But it would have been helpful.
But we just started our friendship over from there. And he was in Wisconsin and I was in Colorado, and we just became best friends. Other than you, honey.
That's right. That was your number one.
But yeah, she's my number one. He became my number two. And we just...
Thanks.
You're welcome. You'll be my number one again when I come back to Colorado, baby.
Thank you.
But honestly, we just started our friendship over again, and I remembered why I liked him. I remembered that we were really good friends, and that was really important to me. And then the last month, right before summer ended, we could both tell we were starting to have feelings for each other. So we decided not to speak for the last month, just to give our heads time to clear, because it was just really everything felt fast between us. It was like that chemistry where it just kind of clicks into place and you're like, it's hard to stop it. So we stopped talking for a month. and didn't see each other for a month just to kind of clear our heads and see, like, do we actually want to keep going with this? And obviously absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Absinthe?
I don't know.
Absinthe makes the...
Also that
can
I
too.
was trashed and suddenly I loved him.
I loved him.
love you.
You know, so during that break, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to be with this guy. And he's probably met some Wisconsin girl, some cheesehead, and has fallen in love with her. And I broke up with him and now I've lost him. And we made this like romantic little pact that we would not talk. We would not talk, but on like September 10th, we would meet back up at like 3:00 at the place that he gave me the guitar.
Really?
And we would see how we felt. Yeah.
Wow.
It's very rom-com-ish.
It's very rom-com.
And how were you, Jonny, through all this?
I mean, I think at that point I knew that I was going to marry her, but I kind of knew all the way through, minus a short period in the middle of the breakup.
Where you hated me.
I was definitely, I have more of a tendency towards once I've made a decision, it's all over. You know what I mean? So
I'm like that.
I just knew, you know, and I think I would have been surprised if it had gone in the other direction at that point, because there just came a point in the middle of the time, actually before we took time apart, in the middle of the season where we were talking on the phone again, where I just knew, like, yeah, this is who I want to be with.
Yeah. So I think probably the break was more for me than anything, to clear my head and to figure out. And so also,
I didn't want to scare you off again.
Yeah, seriously. You never know how that's going to work. But so when we met back up, like, I remember he got out of his truck and I was like, I made Abby like help come get me ready.
Oh yeah, like we had to make you
we had to make me look real good.
Yeah,
I got to win this man back.
Yeah.
And so I remember when he got out of the car, out of his truck, I was like, oh man, Wisconsin has made a boy a man. And I was like, yes, it is on. And we went and, like, you know, it was really sweet and cheesy, but we went and worshiped that night together.
Aww.
And I remember just thinking, like, why would I not end up with him? Like, he is everything that I want, you know. But then I had made this really stupid rule that I shouldn't date until November, I think, because I didn't trust my emotions either.
Well, yeah.
And so I was
sense.
trying to give myself safeguards. Like, let's not talk for a month. I'm not going to make any decisions till November.
And I mean, there was probably a little bit of wisdom on some of those.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There was some wisdom. But then it got to the point where we were loving each other so much, but we were trying not to date. And it was just stupid and miserable. And I talked to my mom and she's so great. She's like, stop being so legalistic and just kiss him already.
Come on, Janice.
I know. So we decided to get together. We had our first kiss the night that we like decided to get together, which was awkward and funny, and then turned out really great in the end.
It was great for me.
I'm sure it was. You had your tongue down my throat.
It's not awkward at all for me.
But we dated and then got engaged, like, I don't know, a handful of months later. And then we're engaged for 6 months. And during our engagement is when, if you've listened to previous podcasts, is when my life outside of Jonny, the ministry that I'd been building, completely started to fall apart.
Yeah.
So while I was having this whirlwind romance with Jonny, my entire world was falling apart. And because I was also great at dissociating, I shoved it all down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any other things you want to add, Jonny?
I don't think so. I mean, I think that if you knew us personally in that time, I think there's no way to state how big of a deal it was, the ministry falling apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, Abby, you know, because you were in it, but it was a family, and it was all that Pietze had worked for since before she was a teenager. I mean, she lived with the people who ran the ministry, and it was I mean, it wasn't just a ministry. I mean, it was like a life
cult.
purpose kind of
Well,
thing.
yeah, I mean, literally,
Yeah.
they wanted to live commune style. They were trying to buy houses where everybody lived together,
Yeah.
and worked together and did everything and shared resources together. Like, I mean, when I say it out loud, it sounds more and more like a cult. But
Yeah,
back
I know.
then-
I'm like, oh gosh.
but it really was this.
Although that idea fizzled out pretty quickly because I think we all realized, like, no, we can't live together. This isn't gonna work.
But a lot of people had cross
Yeah,
living
totally.
together. So
Yeah.
it was all of your world.
It was
your
all
whole
of
But
my
it wasn't
world.
it wasn't like, oh, the church that I go to on Sundays and Wednesdays fell apart.
Yeah.
No, it
It
was
was
my
like
entire world.
The very essence of your life.
Yeah.
Like there's no way to state how big of a deal it was that it all fell apart right as we were getting married.
Yeah. And so we had talked about in the previous podcast how like our wedding was really like it was like a celebration and a funeral because it was basically like the last event of my former life.
Yeah.
You know? And you know, and our wedding was magical. I mean, there was 500 people at our wedding. It was both
It
our
was a
parents are
production.
pastors. It was a production. It was over the
Johnny
top.
wrote music that
There
was
500
unbelievable.
people at your wedding.
It
Yeah.
was ginormous.
Me and Pietze had the opposite weddings.
Yes, we sure did. It was romantic. Johnny wrote the music that
Yeah,
I
it was
walked down the
incredible.
aisle to.
Wow.
We had a video of our love story that played before. We had everything monogrammed. I mean, it was just beautiful. It was romantic. It was beautiful. It was heartfelt.
There was an indoor fountain. There was,
it was over the top.
It was a whole thing.
It was over the top. I'm the only girl.
I will say, though, that your mom is Dutch, so she put on the most extravagant wedding for the cheapest amount of money possible.
Oh my gosh.
We probably paid as much for our wedding that didn't have those details.
Totally.
And there was like 50 people there.
Yeah, exactly.
But your guys'
Yeah.
wedding was magical.
Anyway,
anyhow.
so you guys got married.
Yeah.
We've caught up to you guys being married. And I think that's probably... Do we want to jump into what happens after they get married, Justin, or is that the next episode?
I think that's next episode. I
Yeah.
think getting into that marriage. I do want to ask this, Johnny, because I was so curious. As everything was falling apart with Pietze's ministry, and she was probably in some ways shaken, deeply, deeply bad, right? As she's kind of talked about. How was that affecting you? Were you still were you super that disconnected that didn't seemingly affect you at the time? Is that something that you're now processing on later in life, or were you like, oh my God, this is scary, this is intense? Any of that?
I mean, I think that nothing was processed emotionally until about a month after we were married.
Yeah.
When my dissociation bubble popped.
Even on Pietze's end, she was fine.
Yeah.
When everything was falling apart, she was absolutely fine.
I wasn't
It
fine.
wasn't
I was
until-
acting fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. There was nothing on the surface that would lead me to believe that she wasn't fine.
Yeah.
Until she was having a panic attack a month after we got married and had to go to the emergency room because she
Right.
thought she was having a heart attack, you know?
Right.
But I will say, my heart really hurts for people who get married really young because I know how much pain is involved in the process of that. And I think one of the things that I've processed a lot recently is how much I wish we would have had more training for marriage.
Mm-hmm.
I was processing last night because I knew we were going to do this podcast, and last night I'm kind of, thinking about it, and I was remembering our marriage counseling, and literally the only thing and the guy who did our marriage counseling, great pastor, love the guy, but all I walked away from our marriage counseling with, like our premarital, was that I needed to love Pietze and she needed to respect me. Like that's literally
Totally.
what I
Love
walked
and
away
respect.
from.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because we went through that book. And I think there was some sort of an analogy where you're supposed to use a teddy bear or a flower or something if you need to talk. I don't really remember what that was all about. But even with what Pietze does for a living and what you guys do, obviously I don't do anything in emotional health, but I think my heart
Obviously. It's not obvious. No one knows that.
my heart feels really broken for people who have gone through similar stuff than we do, because it's just so hard. And if you get married really young, like there's just no preparing you for how hard it's going to be. And I wish so much that I could go back and actually prepare for what it means to join your life to somebody. And I think I don't know. You're just kind of dealt the cards that you're dealt. Pietze and I talk about her ministry falling apart all the time. And there's no way that we had any control over any of that.
No.
And so much of this journey of life, I mean, life is just a mess sometimes. You know what I mean? The journey of life, it's out of our control. Like you can't control the things that happen to you very often. And I think that had I been more connected to myself rather than completely dissociated, I would have been able to lean in back then and be like, hey, babe, I know you're acting like you're okay, but this is a big deal and you can't be doing okay. Like, what are you feeling? How can I love you? How can I be there for you? But I was 18. I had no idea. I just knew that she said she was fine. And I was like, all right, she's fine.
Cool.
Let's get married. Let's do this thing.
Yeah.
And obviously that's created a ton of mess to clean up on the back end. But
yeah. And I will say, like, we didn't mention this, but Jonny was 18 and I was 21 when we got married. His birthday was the next day. So I did redeem the next birthday. I broke up with him on the first birthday, but I gave him sex on the second birthday. So I feel like I fully redeemed it.
Repeatedly.
Oh Lord. I always say,
is that what the next podcast is about?
Oh no.
That'll be fun.
But I do say, I'm like, Jonny cried twice up until that point. I saw him cry twice. Once was when I broke up with him. The second time was after the first time we had sex.
Oh. But
Jonny's like, I'm not laughing
second
about
time
this.
was good.
Yeah, the second time was a good cry.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think what's hard is that he did turn 19 the next day. So, but the hard thing is when you get married young, we were so prepared for it, but also you do a lot of growing up together. And sadly, sometimes that growing up is very dysfunctional, which you will hear about and see as our story unfolds.
And some of it is beauty because you guys actually have a really deep bond because your most formative years you've been together.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
There's like, I do want to just give, like, we've made a lot of jokes about your lives being hard, but you guys really love each other and there's a lot of beauty and connection. That's why we have you on The Connected Life. If it was just horrible, I wouldn't invite you to just share the
totally
awfulness.
100%. And it, this story has a happy ending, a really good ending. But yeah, there was such a deep bond between Jonny and I, and we formed this life that we love. And that is the beautiful thing about how young we were, So
the moral of the story is, because I hate when people are like, don't get married young. Because I was like, don't tell me what to do when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Like when I was young, I was like, I'll do what I want. I'm not going to be like you.
Yeah.
Just get help. Get help. If you're going to get married young, ask for counseling as wedding gifts.
Yep. 100%.
This course is helpful for anybody who wants to get married. I highly recommend the Pathway to Freedom.
Absolutely.
If we would have had this course, it would have changed the trajectory of the pain that we walked. We still would have had to face
with me
pain,
and Justin.
but it would have changed the trajectory of the pain.
Mm-hmm.
We would have, how do I put it? We would have fought entirely different because it probably wouldn't have been fights.
Yeah.
It would have been, something's going on inside of me. This is something and we wouldn't have projected onto each other, blamed each other, accused each other of so much that we did that perpetuated so many destructive cycles.
Yeah. Yeah. But I will say this, the cool thing is
it's never too late.
It's never too late. And the cool thing is that for the four of us, this course was birthed out of these painful stories that you're going to hear about. Yeah. And the desire for no other person to have to walk through this like we did and not have tools to equip them,
Yeah. I can't.
Well,
go ahead.
I think one of the things you do, even as you go through this course for anybody who does go through it, if you've been married really young, one of the things you have to do, which I think this is, you can correct me if I'm wrong because I don't know what the heck I'm talking about with emotional health, but there's a thing called reparenting, right?
Yes.
Yes.
One of the things I've had to do with myself is not reparent from when I was a kid, but go back to when I was like 18, 19, when in the midst of getting married really young and being terrified and actually realizing, oh, you were a kid, and then reparenting myself, not as a kid, but as a young married person, you know? And I think that there's a lot of healing. I think Pietze's done the same, where we've had conversations where we're both just weeping like, oh my gosh, you must have been so terrified back then.
Yeah.
You know, and that brings a whole nother level of intimacy to your relationship, because you start to heal the damage that you did to each other early on, not even knowing that you were doing that damage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly though, Justin was 25 when we got married,
Yeah.
and I think you felt terrified and over your head and overwhelmed.
Well, I did. And even at that age, I still didn't. Most people don't have anyone modeling
Yeah.
what it is to relate,
Yep.
what it is to
Yep.
do life well, do close intimacy well. And again, if you don't know much about your insides and you don't understand what's really being spoken to you, you'll always think it's something about the external world that is creating your pain, and then you'll just fight with that external world. And really, this course helps get you out of that fight, and it's really powerful in that way.
So the Pathway to Freedom is actually out today. I mean, it's not out today, but signups are up literally today.
Yep,
And
today's
this
the day.
is so freaking exciting. The Pathway to Freedom is a very practical deep dive into how to walk through your triggers and emotions every day. And we are doing, not only can you sign up? You can sign up at justinandabby.com. But then also we're doing an immersion program so that you can go on this journey with other people, discover what's going on inside of your body and your emotions and your thoughts on a regular basis, figure out how to process it, work through it, how to work through relationships, conflicts, all of the things. It's really, really good. But the immersion program, where you can connect with other people and find your people, because you heal better in community, that me and Pietze are actually going to be leading on a regular basis in the immersion program for this first time only.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Normally we have our consultants do a lot of live consulting things, but we ourselves, me and Pietze, will be answering all the questions and doing the things and working people through it, because we're so passionate about this material and how it can change people's lives.
And there's a brand new website that I've been working on for months upon months upon months.
And we want you to check it out, because
it's
we actually...
so sexy.
It's so sexy. It's so true. You're sexy for doing it.
Yeah.
But there's a spot for the Connected Life where you can type in...
Got your ideas. You can go there and give us your ideas on the Connected Life
for what you want us to do podcasts on.
And if we choose your idea, you're going to get a huge shout out.
Yeah. So if you have ideas that you're like, I'd love to hear them talk about this.
Please.
We have had people DM us, but those can kind of get lost. But now we have a place, and we're going to start doing what the people want.
Yeah. Give them what they want.
And come back for next week. We're going to jump into their relationship, and it's going to be so good for you guys.
Jonny, it was fun having you on here for me.
Oh yeah, you get a man now.
Oh man, I'm so glad to be on.
Yeah, some good man time here. I was just thinking, he's so funny. I'm so glad that he's going to be part of my men's group coming up here
Yes,
in August.
I'm
Did you know
excited.
about that?
Oh, I didn't know about
I just have to get Pietze's permission. I haven't
Ask her
asked
for
yet.
it right now. Ask her for it right now. She has to say yes.
I
She can't
give
say
you
no while we're on the
permission.
podcast.
All right.
Sweet.
Well, cool.
Signed, sealed, and delivered. All right. We'll see y'all next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.